this morning. We're going to speak with Steve Carey in just a moment, but we're going to take you back to St Patrick's Cathedral, just having a look at whether the Prime Minister is arriving there. Special service. There'll be a number of special services held around the country at cathedrals and churches across all of the nation. There's the Prime Minister arriving at St Patrick's Cathedral in the centre of Melbourne there. He paid tribute to Pope Francis last night and sent his well wishes to Catholics across Australia and around the world.
He did, and we're not exactly sure what this, the news of the Pope's death will do to the election campaign. We understand that things are going to be a bit quieter this morning, as they have been coming out of the Easter weekend anyway, but there is a third leaders debate scheduled on the Nine network this evening in Sydney. We'll bring you more from the campaign trail later. Let's head over to Steve Carey, who is here with us with all the papers. And Steve, I mean,
there we go.
There's one.
There's only one
really.
story.
There's one big story, isn't
There's one big story, and for those who are watching who are not as engaged as we might be, the way the news cycle works, this is massive news. I mean, it's the same as when we had the passing of Queen Elizabeth. It's on that scale. 1.4 billion Catholics across the world. It affects everyone, and it will impact the federal election, and it will impact what they say and how they say it. But let's start with my top pick today is the Australian. I think it's an extremely strong and very telling headline, which basically says the divine disruptor. And you know, you look at that, and that is a really, really great photo, but it sums up really, you know, what these uncertain times are. He was a disruptor. His legacy we'll talk about. There'll be millions and millions of words written about it, but these are pivotal moments in history. You know, it comes across only rarely when a pope comes in and then passes. So these are pivotal moments, and at this time of our history, we've got things like, you know, the war in Ukraine, we've got trouble in the Middle East, we've got the Trump administration and everything else with the immigration policy. So the divine disruptor, to me, really summed that up really, really nicely.
Yes, I'm struck that we've lost two important people who worked well into their 80s and 90s, Pope Francis, Queen Elizabeth II in recent years, and their words and their leadership matters at a time of global uncertainty, doesn't it?
It really does, and that's why the other headline I've picked, you know, one of them is the Daily Telegraph, and it's Grazi Papa, which I think is a really, really nice way of summing that part of his papacy up, that a lot of people in the Catholic Church would have looked at him as that father figure, that his legacy, as I've said, that'll be mulled over and that'll be discussed. But, you know, what a beautiful play on words that is too. His liberal reform from his humble beginnings, you know, the first Pope to come from the Southern Hemisphere, never made it to Australia. I actually covered a couple of people way, way back in the day, Pope John Paul II in Papua New Guinea and also East Timor. And the way people feel about their Catholicism at a time when things are tough, faith becomes very important to people. So the papers are picking that up really well. And the other one is the Herald Sun, Pope of the People, which is also another really nice, you know, the imagery there. For those who are watching also, you'll notice that a lot of the Murdoch press, the Herald Sun, the Daily Telly, it's the same photo, which is interesting. So they give them, the editors, the latitude of, you can have a play with words, but you're going to use the same photo. And in that case, it's a very, very strong image there of, you know, what he's doing there.
I think it's fascinating how this is reported around the world, particularly in Western countries. There's sort of a fascination, I think, about whether or not the Pope is progressive or conservative, like where they come from, what are the sort of things they're going to push for. And I mean, we heard from Andrew West saying, essentially, look, the Pope is Catholic. We've got to remember that. So by most standards, you would consider him conservative. But I think there's this interesting discussion in the Times in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to put it up. I hope so. But for those who are at home, I picked it because the Times UK says Liberal, Conservative or left field, who will be next Pope? And what we've had, guys, at the moment, we've had all of this, you know, in the last 24 hours, we've mulled over where he's from. We've looked at what his legacy might be, what the next stage of the media is. And the most important part now is what next? Who gets to be the next Pope? What does that say in terms of where the Church is heading? How do we look at that? And that's going to be really what's going to drive the news agenda now going forward, apart from what world leaders have said. Our own leaders, Mr Dutton and Mr Albanese, say How is that going to play out? And that's going to be absolutely fascinating, because you've got the black smoke if there's no one elected, you've got the white smoke, there's all the theatre of that.
Well, there's plenty of speculation that in this modern world, dragging it on for weeks and weeks, months, certainly not years. I mean, they probably want to get it done and dusted in a few days,
yes, but
right?
this is not a modern institution, is it, Steve? It is steeped in dense tradition going back centuries.
It is, but I would say, to James's point, we are living now in a social world, and the Catholic Church has changed. One of the last things he tweeted was, be human. So they won't let it drag on. There was one case where it went for nearly 3 years. You're going to see a couple of weeks they'll meet. It will be interesting because, using an old gambling, he stacked the cards a bit with a lot of new cardinals which are from Africa and other places. Will it be a European Pope? Will it be a new order Pope, I guess you'd call it? These are the things where the media now are going to keep playing out, and that's, to me, where the real interest is going to come from.
Yes.
An interesting couple of weeks, as of course the
very early starts
takes part. Well, that's part of the job.
That's the brief.
But we'll be bringing you that as it happens. Steve, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the